It was a cold and quiet night, the kind of night when the world feels a little more still, a little more magical. The stars hung low like diamonds in the sky, and a faint chill danced through the air outside. Inside the old house on the corner of Walnut Lane, a gentle warmth glowed from the basement windows, where laughter echoed softly and the scent of cinnamon tea wafted down the wooden steps. In that cozy basement filled with memories, dust-covered boxes, and relics from the past, two young boys, Ayaan and Musa, were sprawled out on the carpeted floor, surrounded by bits of toys, puzzle pieces, and antique train parts. The room was a treasure trove of forgotten joys, and seated in his familiar, creaky rocking chair was their beloved grandfather, known affectionately as Nana Abbu, a man whose eyes twinkled like the night sky, and whose voice held the weight and warmth of 100 tales. Nana Abbu had told them countless stories before, tales of dragons, rivers that whispered secrets, and forests where time stood still. But this night, as the clock struck midnight, and a strange breeze rustled through the closed windows, something different happened. Something the boys would never forget. Ayaan, the more thoughtful and observant of the two, had been curiously inspecting an old model train set that sat on a wooden platform against the far wall. The train was intricate, hand-painted, and lined with tiny figures and flickering lamps. Musa, always bursting with energy and curiosity, was poking around the controls, trying to get it to start. "What's this do?" Musa asked, pressing a small brass lever. Suddenly, the room shimmered. A faint hum filled the air, and a strange vibration pulsed beneath their feet. The train lights flickered. And then, with a soft chug-chug, the engine began to move on its circular track. But this was no ordinary train ride. Before they could react, a glowing light surrounded them. They felt a sensation like drifting, like falling, but gently, almost like being pulled through a dream. Their surroundings stretched and bent, and the walls of the basement faded away. Then everything shrank, or rather they did. In the blink of an eye, the boys were no longer themselves. They were tiny, the size of toy soldiers, standing beside the now giant model train. The miniature train was no longer miniature. It had transformed into a life-sized, magical locomotive. Gleaming with golden metal and steam rising from its chimney like clouds of mist, a brass plate on the side of the engine read an elegant script, "Memoryville Express." A voice, familiar and warm, came from behind them. "Well, I see you've finally found the old engine," said Nana Abbu, now wearing a conductor's hat and a long coat, looking younger, sharper, and somehow, ageless. "Climb aboard, boys. We've got places to go and stories to revisit." Without hesitation, Ayaan and Musa stepped into the glowing train, their hearts pounding with wonder and a sprinkle of fear. As they took their seats beside Nana Abbu, the train began to move, slowly at first, then faster and faster, until the basement disappeared entirely, replaced by rolling hills and swirling skies outside the window. First stop, the village of Kakner, Nana's childhood. The train whistled and slowed as it pulled into a small village surrounded by mustard fields, green as far as the eye could see, and lined with trees that looked like they belonged in a painting. The air smelled of earth and firewood, and the distant sound of a flute filled the breeze. "This is where I grew up," Nana Abbu said softly, a nostalgic smile on his face. Ayaan looked around in awe. The village was bustling with simple life, children flying kites, women carrying clay pots, and men chatting on charpoys under neem trees. But what truly caught their attention was a small, barefoot boy. It's maybe 7 or 8 years old, running through the fields with a wooden toy airplane in hand. He was full of joy, his laughter echoing across the fields. "That's you," Musa exclaimed, recognizing the boy's face. "Yes," Nana nodded. "That's me when my only treasure was that little wooden plane carved by my father." The boys followed the child version of Nana through narrow mud lanes and into a small hut. Inside, his mother was kneading dough while his father sharpened farming tools. They watched the younger Nana make mistakes, get scolded, but also experience pure, simple love. They saw how he learned to share with his siblings, even when there wasn't tea enough to go around. They saw the deep respect he showed his elders, and how he helped his mother without being told. In that village, the boys learned a lesson that stayed with them long after the train left. Family is not just about being related. It's about showing up for each other every single day. Second stop. City of Dreams. Young adulthood, the train whistled again, and the scenery shifted. Gone were the mustard fields. Their place rose, tall buildings, honking rickshaws, and the chaotic energy of a busy city. Neon lights lit up the sky, and the streets buzzed with life. This, Nana Abbu said, was the most confusing and exciting time of my life. I had just moved here for college. I didn't know anyone. I had nothing but dreams and a bicycle. The boys saw a lanky teenager navigating the city streets, working in a tea stall during the day and studying by candlelight at night. He failed many times, missed his home, but he never gave up. They followed him into a crowded classroom, where he asked a teacher 100 questions. They watched him get rejected from job interviews, but still wake up early the next day to try again. They saw him lend money to a friend who needed it more. They witnessed him stand up for someone being treated unfairly. In this city, Nana said, I learned that kindness isn't weakness, and dreams don't work unless you do. Ayaan turned to Musa. He never told us about any of this. He doesn't need to, Musa replied. He lived it. Third stop. The house of many cries and laughs. Young fatherhood. As the train chugged forward once again, the scenery became homely, the inside of a small 2-room house. They saw a young man, now married, rushing around with a crying baby in one arm and a bucket of laundry in the other. His eyes looked tired, but his smile was unshaken. This was me. Just after your father was born, Nana whispered to Ayaan. We had very little. No fridge, no proper stove. But what we did have was love. The boys watched scenes of struggle. Nana skipping meals so his wife could eat, working double shifts, fixing broken furniture with his bare hands. But they also saw joy. A first birthday cake made from leftover bread and cream, silly dances in the rain, and bedtime stories told with puppets made from socks. Fatherhood, Nana Abbu said, his eyes misty, is not just about providing. It's about being present. It's about letting your children know they are loved, even when the world outside is hard. Final stop. The station of today. Suddenly, the train began to slow again. But this time, it wasn't a village, a city, or a home outside their window. It was the basement once more. The same cozy room, the same shelves, the same train set on the platform, but something had changed. Ayaan and Musa were back to their normal size. The train sat silently, as if it had never moved at all. Nana Abbu was back in his old sweater, rocking slowly in his chair, sipping his tea. The boys looked at him, their eyes wide with realization. Did all that really happen? Ayaan asked, his voice trembling. Nana smiled. Some journeys happen with your feet, others happen with your heart, but both can take you places. Musa looked at the train, then back at their grandfather. Why did you show us all that? Nana Abbu placed his cup down and leaned forward. Because stories are not meant to die. They're meant to be passed on, from old hearts to young ears. And someday, when you're both grown and your hair starts to turn white, I want you to tell your children that once upon a time, you rode the Memoryville Express.